This is the 2026 Rivian R1S Quad Motor, and it's the brand new ultimate version of the latest Rivian R1S. This now has over 1,000 horsepower and a lot of other really cool features, along with a sticker price of around $125,000. Today, I'm going to review the new R1S Quad Motor and show you all of its quirks and features.
I've been using DeleteMe for years now, and let me tell you, I'm still just as grateful for it today as I was the day I signed up. The first time I saw my personal info all over the internet, it was honestly kind of alarming. My full name, old phone number, old addresses, even info about my family, it was just sitting there publicly accessible. And it wasn't on just one site, it was on dozens. I had no idea that kind of data was floating around, let alone how easy it was for anyone to get their hands on it. And listen, as someone who's pretty visible online, I've had to deal with some pretty weird stuff. Random emails, weird messages, people digging a little too deep. That's why privacy is something I take seriously. DeleteMe became a core part of how I protect myself and my family, and that's why I always recommend DeleteMe. It's been one of the best decisions I've made when it comes to online safety and peace of mind. DeleteMe is a subscription service that removes your personal information from hundreds of data broker sites. And here's what I love. You don't have to do anything complicated. You give them your info once, what you want removed, and they go to work. Every few months, they send me a personalized report showing exactly what they found and what they've removed. I've gotten emails like, we found your name, phone number, and address on 38 sites, and we removed it. It's honestly kind of incredible, and they don't stop. This is an ongoing thing. DeleteMe keeps monitoring and removing your info so it doesn't just come right back. Over the years, I've watched the amount of my data online shrink more and more. It's like a digital spring cleaning, but someone else is doing all the work. Take control of your data and keep your private life private by signing up for DeleteMe, now with a special discount for our viewers. Today, get 20% off your DeleteMe plan when you go to joindeleteme.com/demuro and use code DEMURO at checkout. The only way to get 20% off is to go to joindeleteme.com/demuro and enter code DEMURO at checkout. That's joindeleteme.com/demuro, code DEMURO.
All right, time for the quirks and features of the new updated Rivian R1S Quad Motor. First, a little background. The R1S and its pickup truck sibling, the R1T, came out a few years ago, and they have been huge successes, including on my channel, where I awarded the R1T my Car of the Year award, and then the next year, the R1S got the same award because they are just that impressive. And even as electric vehicle demand has kind of slowed, there's still been a lot of interest in these vehicles. They're off-roaders, they're luxury SUVs, they're fast, they're high-tech, they do it all. And the big news for 25, among a slew of updates, the biggest change is more power. Now, that's especially true for the quad motor model, this one. Previously, the R1S Quad had 835 horsepower, did 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds, pretty impressive, but now it has 1,025 horsepower, and it does 0 to 60 in 2.6 seconds, which matches the 0 to 60 time of the new Chevy Corvette Z06, which is an amazing sports car. Everybody's raving about how fast that thing is. Well, here is a family luxury off-road SUV that's just as fast. This will hit the quarter mile in 10.5 seconds at 128 miles an hour. That's faster than Hellcats, Corvettes, basically every supercar. It is unbelievable performance, undoubtedly the fastest SUV on the planet. It really is special. Huge performance, but that comes with a huge price tag. The quad motor version has a starting price of more than $120,000. So you got to really pay up to get that power. Now, the good news is you don't have to get the quad motor, and other R1S models are far more reasonably priced and they have more reasonable power. The base level version is a dual motor model, so motor in front, motor motor in back, and that has up to 665 horsepower. Still massive and still expensive, with a starting price of around $80,000. It'll do 0 to 60 in around 4.5 seconds. And then in the middle, there is a tri-motor model, obviously with 3 motors, and that has about 850 horsepower, which is a huge figure because that's more than the outgoing R1S Quad Motor. Now the tri-motor beats that. They really just ratcheted up the power in all of these vehicles. Now, beyond the power upgrades, a lot of the basics about the R1S are still the same as before. Rivian says this has about 350 miles of range. It's still a family-friendly 3-row SUV, and the size is about 200 inches long, roughly the same as a Ford Explorer or other 3-row SUVs of this type. The really big outlier, though, compared to those cars is the weight. This comes in at just under 7,000 pounds. It requires a lot of battery and a lot of weight to make a vehicle that can do everything. Performance, off-road, luxury, that's heavy. Now, I'm going to show you all the quirks and features of the R1S, but I'm going to start by highlighting some of the most important new features, and that means starting with kick turn. Kick turn is a feature that allows the vehicle to rotate in place. Which doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense, but allow me to explain. To access kick turn, you go into the off-road driving menu, and then there's a little image down at the bottom that shows a vehicle like turning with arrows. You press on that, and then this graphic comes up showing the Rivian mascot. He's the gear guard guy, and he's accompanied by this little switch that lets you turn on kick turn. Now, before you do that, though, it's important to point out that there's a little Easter egg on this screen. Namely, you can spin the gear guard guy like you plan to spin your vehicle around, and you can spin him and spin him and spin him and spin him until he gets sick and actually throws up from being turned around so much, which is a funny little quirk. But anyway, if you turn on kick turn with this screen, you then have the ability to actually activate this feature by using the accelerator pedal and, strangely, the steering wheel buttons, which allow you to choose which direction you want your kick turn to go. Once you have all the conditions met, this is what happens. Now, that's pretty crazy, but I've already shown you that feature in the electric Mercedes G-Wagon, the G580. It can also do that exact same thing. There are, however, some differences here. Number one, the Rivian can also do it while it's moving. In the G-Wagon, you have to be completely stopped, but the Rivian can be going up to 10 miles an hour and actually make this turn. The thinking there is you're off-roading on a rugged trail and there's a tight switchback. Instead of doing a bunch of back and forth, you can use this feature to kind of kick around in place and make an easy turn around a switchback, which is actually useful. The other difference is that while the G-Wagon can do its G-turn on pavement, the R1S cannot. I asked Rivian why, and they said they don't want this feature to be a party trick, implying that maybe it is in the G-Wagon. Instead, they want it to be a useful off-roading feature, and that's why it can do it while it's moving, and why it has to be on loose ground while you're actually off-roading and not just showing off on the street. Now, another cool feature for the latest updated R1S is something called RAD Turner, which kind of gives you customizable drive mode options that go way beyond anything you've ever seen before. Okay, so this car has drive modes. You can see them here. Sport, Conserve, your regular drive modes. But you can also go into RAD Turner and customize anything you want, as you can see. So for instance, you can adjust the drivetrain bias from all the way rear-wheel drive, if you just want a rear-wheel drive driftmobile, to all the way front-wheel drive, if for some reason you might want that. I met with a Rivian engineer who was explaining this to me. He said, we can't think of a reason why someone might want it, but it's doable, so why not let people if they want? And you can adjust basically everything else here too. For instance, the wheel slip. You can dial dial it all the way up to get a lot of wheel slip or dial it all the way down. You can change your regen, dial it up or down. You can do a lot of different levels of suspension damping, all sorts of stuff. Now, it's worth noting some of this stuff can't fully be turned off or go totally crazy. Rivian says these 0 to 100% dials are within acceptable engineering guidelines, but nonetheless, a huge amount of configurability here. And if you're unsure about what something is, there's a helpful little explainer page that goes through what each item is to help you understand it a little bit better. And here's the really cool part. When you customize your specific drive settings in every little area, you can save it to one of a few different presets that you can also name. So for example, if you have like your racetrack preset, you can do that. Or if you have a preset for your favorite off-road trail or Baja, whatever you want to do, you can do that, set a preset, name it, and then you have it ready to go at any time with all of your customization settings done. That's pretty cool. Also a new feature of the R1S, there is a launch control mode. You go to it with the sport drive mode activated. It's a little checkered flag here. You tap on that and then there's like coaching in the gauge cluster to get you ready for a full launch, and then you can do it and launch the car for your optimal acceleration time. Now, unfortunately for Rivian owners of previous vehicles, none of this stuff can be updated over the air. It's all hardware limited, and so it's only going to be available on the new model, this one, and on R1S quad motor models going forward. But very cool features nonetheless, very cool to see it and to test some of them out. But anyway, beyond those upgrades for the latest R1S, let's move on to general quirks and features about this vehicle, starting on the outside with the Boxy Design, which has been beloved among basically everyone. Boxy is in right now, the G-Wagon, the Kia Telluride, all the 4Runner off-roader type vehicles, and this definitely fits the trend, looks great, and it's been very well received generally. And there's a couple of cool exterior quirks, like for example, the door handles, which remain flush with the body with the door until you unlock the door, and then they pop out so you can grab on and open them up. You also have a trick hidden charge port. Most cars in the back fender, there's like this cutout. It's very obvious where the charge port or the fuel door is. Here, it's up front and it's really hidden. You wouldn't know it's there, but you can open it up and that's where you charge the vehicle, and very cool to see it there, not kind of taking some space, ruining the look of a panel or from a certain angle with that hidden charge port door. Now, since we're up front, worth pointing out that well, I've never really warmed up to the front end styling of this vehicle. Even though I really love the boxy overall look, I think the oval headlight front end thing is just a little weird, and I've never really gotten into it. And I hear that complaint from other people too. It's the one part of the car a lot of people don't love. Now, it's worth pointing out the latest R1S model now has a sweeping front turn signal up here, which does add a little bit more modernity to the front end, but you still got to contend with those weird oval light things. A few other interesting quirks. For one, the wheels. This R1S has one of a few new wheel designs that signify you're looking at the new Rivian model. And just like before, the key is also a carabiner, which I think is just a really cool touch for a vehicle that's marketed as off-road lifestyle for mountain climbers. It makes sense to have that as the key. And as always, when you lock the door, the R1S makes a little bird sound tweeting. Take a listen. Now, I gotta tell you, as someone who spends a lot of time filming videos outside, this is one of my favorite things about the Rivian. So many cars, you lock the door and they honk the horn and it's disruptive and annoying. This car, it just sounds like nature. It's not disruptive at all, but if you're a Rivian owner, you know to listen for the sound, you know your door is locked. It's a perfect idea, and they've gone a step further with the latest Rivian. If you lock the door at night, it sounds like an owl. Take a listen. Now, the owl might be a bit much, but in general, I think this is a much better idea than honking the horn with the door lock, and I really, really love it. One thing I'm not so sold on with this car is the exterior upgrades to show off the quad motor. There are basically none. On the tailgate, you have this little badge, which is the Rivian mascot, the gear guard guy that I showed you before in the infotainment screen. He's only on the quad motor models. Also on the tailgate, you can see the R1S badge, but if you look really closely in the center, it says quad between R1 and S. And then also the quad motor models have blue brake calipers, although they are mostly completely hidden behind this wheel design. That is basically it. Other than that, there's essentially no way to tell apart the quad motor from the most basic regular dual motor model that costs half as much. And I think that's totally insane. Imagine if the regular Mercedes G-Wagon and the G63 looked the same. You would never do it. A lot of people who spend more money for more power also want to show off their more power with extra chrome trim or wider intakes or box fenders, whatever it is. This car has none of that stuff, and it totally surprises me that they're going to get people to pay $120,000 plus, and most people will have no idea that it's not just the base model, unless they see it accelerate away at a traffic light. And next we move inside the R1S, and I gotta say the interior is just as fantastic as ever. It is so nice in here. That's one of the tricks about the R1S. It's an off-roader and it's a performance car and it's an electric car, but it's also a luxury car, and that's really true if you look in this interior. You can see very nice kind of natural wood on the dashboard, looks good and feels good. The seats have this really nice quilted leather two-tone upper part, looks fantastic. The floor mats with their sort of plaid design, they actually look pretty good. It works. The steering wheel, again, two-tone with the wood. Everything in here is nice. It isn't quite as high-end in terms of materials as the very upper echelon luxury SUVs that it competes with, like the full-size Range Rover. It's a little nicer in a Range Rover for a few reasons, but it's really close to that, and it doesn't cost as much. And so that's a pretty neat trick that Rivian pulled off. And of course, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. Let's start with the giant central screen, which basically does everything for this car. You can see it is huge, and it can give you some really huge displays, like a full screen map, which is absolutely massive in here, showing, well, a map, as you can see. You also have massive cameras, very high resolution, very good for helping to guide the vehicle around in tight spaces. And you generally have a large responsive screen that can do a wide variety of things. I really love it, although I do wish there was a kind of generic home screen setting that would partition it up. So you could have like a map displayed in one part and then the radio in another part. Instead, you have to kind of go between them, which is a little annoying. A lot of other automakers do have sort of a split setup, but not here. Now, one thing I really love here is the very easy car controls in this screen. You press this little Rivian icon at the top and it pulls up your vehicle controls. And some of it is really obvious, like it'll open up the front trunk or the rear tailgate, but there's also some cool little quirks in here. For instance, you can turn on the mirror lights. These are lights on the exterior mirrors that you can manually turn on if you want to illuminate the space around the Rivian. If, for example, you're camping, you pulled up to your campsite, it's dark, you can get a little extra light, which is pretty cool. You also have the ability in here to change the transparency of the sunroof. This giant glass panel can be completely transparent or completely opaque depending on your selection here in this menu, which is kind of neat. And you can see it totally changes to allow light to come in or no light if you'd prefer that, which is really cool. Now, this is also the area where you access pet mode. You tap on this control icon and you can turn on pet mode, which will turn on the vehicle and the air conditioning, the climate control, to make sure the interior stays nice and temperate, but the doors are locked so nobody can come in and steal your pet. So in this case, if you wanted to go into a store, do some shopping while your pet stays in the car, you could do that and your pet will stay completely fine in the car, which obviously is a cool benefit of an electric vehicle that you can't really do with a gas-powered car. Now, those are some cool things about the screen, but one drawback is it integrates all climate control functions into the screen, which means everything you do generally requires going into menus, except for a few quick shortcuts. Like changing the temperature is easy enough on any screen, but even if you want to turn on the heated seats, you got to tap the seat icon, then to select heated seat, cooled seat, or steering wheel. It's a nice shortcut, but it does add a little bit of complexity compared to a simple button like so many cars have. And any other climate control does require a menu, and that even means changing the direction direction the vents are pointed. You can't just flip a little switch on the vents themselves. You got to go into the climate control and then actually adjust the vents electronically, which is kind of a cool party trick, but it gets old fast compared to just moving the vents around. Still, this is a really good screen. Responsive, intuitive, easy, and it controls so much stuff, and it controls it all very well laid out. And that's also true of the gauge cluster screen, which you can see behind the steering wheel. This one's a little bit more straightforward. You get a map over on one side, your driving info in the center, and then some general info all around. Not as configurable, but it does give you all the info you want to know right in your line of sight, and it is really good and a great complement to the also good central infotainment screen. But anyway, other interesting quirks and features up front. For one, the door popper. You don't get a standard door handle in this car. Instead, there is a button you press and then it electronically pops the door open and you climb out. Although there is also a backup manual door handle like a normal car would have, which is right next to the popper. And so you could just pull that if you'd prefer to not pop your door electronically. Also worth pointing out, kind of cool, on the door panel itself, you have this little storage compartment that can fold forward and actually become a little bit wider. If you have some larger item that doesn't quite fit, you can probably get it to fit, which is pretty neat to see. And on the subject of storage, your center console is very deep, a lot of storage space in there, and below that you have a little storage tray. You can pull it out, it's like a drawer where you can put stuff and then slide it back under the center console so nobody knows that it's there. And then there's the back seat, the second row. Two instant impressions about the second row when you climb in. Number one, the materials are very nice. Again, you have the same quilted leather you do up front with the two-tone seats and the nice stitching in between. Everything back here is just as nice as what you've got up front, and it really feels like a great place to be. And there's even a central infotainment screen for the rear passengers where you can do a lot of stuff. You can adjust, for instance, the music you're listening to on this screen. Just tap here, and then you can make a change, or go back to the home screen. You can adjust your climate control, turn it on, change the temperature, or turn on your heated and cooled rear seats. Back here, you could also use this little lighting icon to turn on the interior lights, which is kind of cool. And there's even a little compass built in back here, so you can always follow along with your direction of travel. Now, also back here, you can see below this screen, you have two separate USB-C ports, and below that, hard to see, but it's down there, you have a household style outlet, so you can plug in just a regular household power source, which is fantastic. Great to see that in car. A lot of times that's relegated to the cargo area, but it's nice to see that in the interior of the R1S. And there's even more power in here. You look up behind the front headrest, you can see a little power port on either side, and it's right next to this hook. The hook is there, I guess you could use it to hang clothes, but more likely you'll use it with an accessory tablet holder that Rivian will sell. And then you can have a tablet back here. Rear passengers can watch the tablet. It's hooked here, and then it can be plugged in with this handy plug right next to where the tablet goes, which is a pretty cool idea. And speaking of that vicinity, worth pointing out that the seat backs are actually covered in kind of a nice feeling cloth, which is different from basically every other SUV where it's usually hard plastic back here. It's kind of nice to see this cloth. It really adds to the feeling of quality in this car. Now, one disappointment back here is the general lack of cup holders. You do have them. If you fold down the center armrest, you get cup holders here, but there's no other cup holders in back. And that means if you have a center rear passenger, you have no cup holders at all. A lot of automakers will integrate cup holders into the door panel in back for that exact reason, but they haven't done that here. Now, with that said, you do once again have those nifty cargo pockets on the door handle that sort of expand out. In theory, you could put drinks in there. It's not really what it's designed for, and you could imagine it rolling around. Of course, also worth pointing out on the back door, once again, the door poppers back here. You press the button and it pops open. But next, let's talk third row. First, third row access, which is pretty easy. You press this little button on the side of the second row, and then the second row folds forward and lets you slide it forward to create easy access to the third row. And once you get back there, you can see, well, there is a third row. It's not exactly huge. You, as an adult, wouldn't want to spend a lot of time back here, but children or smaller people, they can get back here and sit. And if they do, they'll find a surprising amount of amenities. For instance, the third row has its own dedicated sunroof, which is kind of cool. And the third row has its own climate vents, which is nice to see. No climate controls, but that's better than nothing. And the third row has its own cup holders, one on each side. And there's even its own storage compartment. You lift this armrest up and there's storage in there. And there's a USB-C port in there for device charging in the third row. So the third row isn't the penalty box in this car that it can be in a lot of other ones. You still get a lot of nice stuff back there. And finally, let's talk cargo storage, starting with the back and the tailgate in the R1S, which is split. That means there's an upper part that opens, as you can see, and there is also a lower part that opens down, so it's like a split clamshell. This has been a historic trait of some beloved old school SUVs, like the Range Rover has always had this split tailgate design. The Toyota Land Cruiser used to have it back in the day when it was still good, and now we have it here on the R1S. And the cool part about the split tailgate is it allows you to sit on the lower part of the tailgate, and so you can hang out and, well, tailgate at your favorite sporting event, or you go to the beach, you can just sit back there and enjoy, which is a pretty neat idea. It's always nice to see a split tailgate. Now back here, there's a lot to discuss, but the most important and impressive thing, there's a lot of space behind the third row. You rarely see this, especially in a car the Rivian size. It's not massive, huge like a Suburban, but it really does have a decent amount of space back here. I wish I had this much space in my Toyota Sequoia, which is even longer than the Rivian, and it doesn't have as much cargo capacity. Now with that said, one drawback, the floor of this cargo area lifts up, but there's no extra storage under there. You only have the spare tire, so what you see is what you get. Thankfully, it is very easy to put down the third row seat in the Rivian. You just flip the switch and push it down, but it remains incredibly difficult to get the seat back up. You actually have to climb into the cargo area all the way in here and lift the seat back into place. There is no power mechanism. There's no loop latch thing that you pull on. Instead, you have to manually go in there and do it, which is a crazy oversight. I can't believe they're still going with it. With that said, you can easily drop the second row seats in the cargo area. You press this little button over on the side, and the second row seat drops down, folds flat, along with the third row, so you have a big cargo area in here if that's what you want. Now, next to the little buttons to fold the second row, you slide this panel forward, and you can see more power outlets, specifically cigarette lighter and another household power port. So you have one in the interior in the second row and another one in the cargo area. Absolutely brilliant to have those in the car. Really helps out at a pinch if you don't have a USB-C. Now, it's also worth pointing out that if you slide this lower panel forward, you will see that in this area is a built-in air compressor that will allow you to air up or air down your tires before or after you go off-roading. It's not fully automatic. You can't just dial in pressures and the car will do everything for you. You have to actually connect each tire with a line and then go tire by tire with your desired pressure, but it's very neat to have a built-in air compressor instead of some aftermarket accessory that's slow that you might lose. It's neat to have that with you for all of your off-roading adventures. And finally, let's talk about the other cargo compartment, the front trunk. You can open this up several different ways, including press the front trunk button on the key fob. You can see it automatically opens itself up and reveals a shockingly large front trunk. A lot of EVs have a front trunk. Most of them are pretty small. In some cases, they basically only hold paperwork. This has a lot of space where you can put a lot of stuff. And if you lift up the front trunk floor, you will notice there is even more space under here for even more stuff, like your charging cables or your tire compressor lines or a first aid kit in this case. A lot of stuff under here, which is really nice to see. It is a really well-designed and well-packaged vehicle with all the space, interior space, and that large front trunk. And just in case you're worried about being kidnapped in an R1S, well, the front trunk has a little button, this one here. It's an emergency release. You press it, and then you can climb out of the R1S front trunk and escape from your kidnapper. But anyway, with all of that stuff said, all of the quirks and features, I'm especially excited to get this out on the road and find out how the world's fastest SUV drives. So let's do it. All right, driving the new R1S Quad, and I gotta tell you, it is just unbelievable what this is. Now, I do want to say the Quad in particular, I think is amazing and insane, but it's also kind of over the top. Like, I think the vast majority of people who I know who have a Rivian, and I know a lot of people here in Southern California who have one, trucks and SUVs, the vast majority of people I know, they use it as like a family transport vehicle. They drive it around. They don't want 1,000+ horsepower. Like, I think Rivian does this because they want to say that they can. They want to win these comparison tests, the acceleration tests. They want to show the world what's available. But like, realistically, not that many people are going to buy this or even be interested in this. So as cool as the Quad is, it's just kind of an absurd thing, and we all know that. And it doesn't really reflect, I think, what the vast majority of Rivian's actual buyers are interested in. Nonetheless, you know, it does do a good job of showing everything, right? Like, not only the stuff that all the Rivians have, but also the most capable, most powerful version too. You kind of get a taste of it all here. And so with that in mind, I'm gonna floor it quickly. Oh. Oh my God! Oh my God! That is mind-blowing! What? Oh my God, it's so fast. You know, I am used to those kinds of speeds, but in sports cars, it's just so much more expected in a sports car when you do that versus in a vehicle like this. I cannot believe how unbelievably, ridiculously, insanely fast that is. That is on a totally crazy level. I just drove the new ZR1. It feels like that, but you're in a tall SUV. Now, that's really fun, but even just doing that, I noticed what is clearly a drawback of being in a tall SUV, which is you get going so fast, but it's a little bit ponderous. The R1S handles okay, but its real big sporty selling point is its acceleration. This is not a Porsche Cayenne. This is not a Lamborghini Urus or a Ferrari Puro Sangue. This is a kind of tall, blocky, off-road capable SUV that can adjust itself to a high suspension level. And when you get going at that speed, I'm noticing, I wouldn't say it's hard to control. It's just, there's a reason that speed is typically limited to sports cars. You definitely have to be a little bit careful getting going that fast, because a turn comes up, and this is not like accelerating in a ZR1 into a turn. This is like accelerating in a G-Wagon into a turn. And so you have to be careful. Okay, so the acceleration is amazing, and we all already knew that, but I'm going to switch into conserve mode, sort of the regular drive mode. And I'm kind of curious now, you know, it's been a while since I reviewed the original R1S SUV, and I'm kind of curious now how this feels. How, you know, this is the Gen 2 model. What's it like? And the answer is, just cruising around in it, it's excellent. I remember why I back-to-back gave the R1T and the R1S my Car of the Year awards 2 years in a row, because it is just really a capable car in so many ways. And you start to quickly understand why this is so desirable beyond just the crazy acceleration, which is an amazing party trick, and it's cool it can do that, but that's not why people buy this, which is so funny, because 99% of the cars that do 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, the reason people buy them is they're fast. This car, that's like 12th on the reason that people buy it. It's almost a byproduct. It happens to be fast. But it also does so much more than that, which is it delivers a tall driving position, great technology, great interior, nice ride quality, obviously a practical interior, a lot of seats, good driving range. Like, I've made the point that the R1S can do it all, and it really truly can do it all. And of course, it can also go off-roading and do that, which is another level of impressive insanity that you don't get in so many vehicles. It really can do anything you ask. And obviously, the quad motor can do anything you ask, given its level of performance, but even a tri-motor or dual motor car can do basically anything you ask for a lot less money. That's what I would get if I was getting an R1S. As cool as the idea of a quad motor is, it's simply not necessary. And the other ones are also plenty fast, and they're all just plenty good, plenty capable, and amazing at what they can deliver. It's just truly one of the great all-round cars in the history of cars. And so that's the new 2026 Rivian R1S Quad Motor. This is an amazing combination of stuff. Great interior room, great boxy styling, good driving range, amazing performance, excellent technology, fantastic off-road capability, cargo space. It really has everything. It's gotten pretty pricey, especially for this version, but that's what happens when your vehicle does it all, and this truly does. And now it's time to give the new R1S Quad Motor a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 71 out of 100, which puts the R1S here against rivals actually just below the original R1S I reviewed. How is that possible? Well, this is the best, coolest, most exciting, most amazing Rivian ever, no question, and it beats other Rivian models and basically all other vehicles in most categories. Where it loses is value. This R1S Quad Motor is truly awesome, but it's gotten so expensive that it's hard to justify. Thankfully, that same problem doesn't affect other Rivian models, which have basically all of the same benefits as the Quad Motor. They're much more affordable and a little slower, but who cares on a family SUV? The dual or tri-motor models are the ones to get. Only get the Quad if you simply have to have the fastest three-row SUV in the carpool line and you're willing to pay up for it.